interest. This is a subject that we've been working on for quite a long time, more than 2 years. And as time has gone by, the amount of information that we've accumulated just keeps building up and building up. And we felt that it was important that people in the community have an opportunity to see the original documents. There's a great deal of misinformation going around, and we wanted to put that to rest because this is very important for the community, and it's something that, in my mind and for the rest of us, we feel needs to be fixed so that our community does not slide into a financial crisis. At any rate, we are happy to answer questions. We're going to do a little bit of switching off and explaining different sections of the presentation. We're happy to answer questions. We don't want to get into a big debate. We'll be happy to do that at another time if people want to go into things in great depth. So let's get started. See if I can. As we looked at the stack of issues that came to light over, as I say, over a period of years, we categorized them in a number of different groups. The first one is going to be a section on accounting discrepancies, including the school crossing fund, which has been written about in the paper a little bit over the last few months. We're also going to talk about the uncollected water bills and the garbage hauling issues. We're going to talk about the cemetery endowment fund, and we're going to talk about some of the issues that relate to oversight in the city management. So, let's get started here. The first thing perhaps to say is that all of the records that we are working from are public documents. These are distributed to the city council members, but they're available to the public. All you have to do is go into City Hall and ask for them. So there's nothing here that's confidential or something that we created. Now, among accounting discrepancies, one of the things we found that reports do not agree when they cover the same period. So here's an example. I'm going to use as my example this particular fund, revolving loan fund, for a pretty simple reason. This is an account that is separate. It doesn't have any wages or any complicating financial transaction. There's no inventory that's purchased, no services that are purchased. It's just loans, and there are 3 loans in this fund right at the moment. There should be a little bit of interest coming in, so it's a very simple, clean account. This report is dated the end of April of 2011, and that is the end of our fiscal year. Most of us deal with a regular calendar year, so we would be looking at December 31st. But this is actually our fiscal year. The last date of that is April 30th. So you can see that this particular account for the fiscal year ended in April of 11 with a negative balance, negative $22,146.51. At the same time, and I should also say that this particular account, revenue disbursements, this is the city's books. This is a computer printout of the city's accounts. The report that's at the bottom is a segment of a report that is a summary of all of the city's checking accounts. There are quite a number, about 15 or so. And here is this same account, revolving loan fund, which shows, contrary to this negative number, shows a balance of almost $59,000.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
You have a tab there, you've got your, and I don't know how long Carroll does it, but you have 72009950 and also 9130 as your codes, I assume.
Yes.
But the code at the bottom is a completely different number, so are we sure it's the same account?
We are sure it's the same account because there is only one. But the actual city codes, how these are coded, this is Julie's system. I know that the codes are from the state, but I don't know exactly how she's categorized these. But there's only one revolving loan fund. Okay. Another one of the issues that occurs is that the amounts in the account can change from one period to the next. So we're going to stick with this revolving loan. We're sticking here with 11. So we're now 1 day later, from April 30th to May 1st. The bank balance, oh, I'm sorry. Can everybody hear me? Am I speaking too softly? Okay, I'll try to remove that. This report is from the next day. We just looked at April 30th. Here's May 1st. This is the bank balance report that shows virtually the same amount. But what's notable is that the city's books show that instead of having a balance of negative 22,000 and change, now all of a sudden the balance is $5,102. And see, here's the figure from April. This is what the money was on April 30th. Here's the balance, the opening balance for the new fiscal year on May 1st. Another issue. Sometimes the balances change when reports are run at different times. So, again, revolving loan fund. This report is issued once a month. And in December of 12, so a couple of months ago, we requested copies of this report for each one of the months of 2012. And what we found was that in the month of June, the report that was issued in December showed a balance of $121,000, whereas the report that was created at the end of June, beginning of July, showed an opening balance of $5,102. Why that changed, I don't know. Another issue is the inaccurate reporting of bank balances, bank account imbalances. This particular example relates to an account that's called the check clearing account. This is the piece of that bank balance report. I had to chop it off so that everything would fit on one page. But what I wanted to show you here was this is from the month of July of last year. This account was reported to have an opening balance of a little over $500. Transactions, money coming in, about $84, money going out, $58, ending balance, $533. However, the bank statement for this account shows considerably different figures. For the same period of time, the same account, the opening balances in the bank, over $33,000. Transactions, money coming in over $270,000, money going out $270,000 plus, an ending balance of $34,000 and change. But yet, the report that goes to the City Council shows that there was $533 there. Okay. Another thing that's peculiar is that that list, that summary of bank accounts, does not include all of the accounts that we've found. There's another account called payroll account, which does not appear on the report. And what we have found is that bills, instead of writing a check from the account where the activity would occur, like the streets department or the water department, bills that are related to those particular activities, instead of being written from those accounts, they're written as checks that are deposited in another account, and the checks are then sent out from those accounts. I know that's a little hard to visualize just from words, but I'm going to try and show you what I mean. There's one implication of that that's really important, and what that is, since the money is moved from one city account to another city account, there's never any checks that are outstanding. So an explanation that says that, well, the checks haven't cleared yet doesn't hold up because the money has still been in city accounts. The checks were sent out from another account. They're not outstanding from the original activity account. So let's see if I can show you this. Okay, here is the bank statement from the payroll account, and this is from last March. You can see that the opening statement here, our opening balance was over $31,000. There were $93,000 in deposits that were made. $104,000 was checks were written, was paid out for our balance, remaining of over $20,000. The thing is that this account has never been seen before. This is not an account that is reported to the City Council. We only discovered its existence a couple of months ago. Here is the bank summary account for the exact same period of time, since March of 12, and it doesn't appear. It's never shown. Okay, so this payroll account is used for payroll expenses, but it's also used for some other things. Here's the payroll. This is the bank statement for the payroll account. This is from last May. And you can see down here, opening balance, closing balance, but look at the transactions that are going through it. 153,000 and plus was written out of it. And since we have 6 full-time employees and a handful of part-time employees, that's a pretty large amount to expect to be just payroll. And the simple fact is it's not. I've included some of the deposit tickets here, and I know that it's next to impossible to read these entries, but the entries show that this money is coming in from all different accounts through the city. But this is what's actually more interesting. These are some of the checks that are written from this payroll account. You can see the bill for garbage to mooring disposal was written from this, and the numbers are covered up, but that was over $8,000. Northern Illinois diesel for truck repair, quarry. PC Labs is for testing water. National Trust for Historic Preservation, I'm not even sure what that was. So these are activities that are legitimate city activities, but they don't have anything to do with the payroll. And why they are paid from the payroll account, I do not know. So we've got to fly. Okay. Another one of the issues is monthly transactions that are different from the bank balances and the city's books. So far we've been talking about the running balances, the money that's in the account over a period of time. But in this particular slide, I wanted to show you that the transactions, the money coming in and the money going out in a particular month also don't agree. So here we have the bank summary account once again, and you can see that this is from last September. Here's our general fund. This is the opening balance for the general fund. This is the ending balance. And this is money that came in. This is money that went out. Now, my notes here are the figures that were in the city's books, that were in the financial report. So where is the transactions that pass through the checking account, in theory, were over 63,000. This one is not quite the same, slightly different. Here's a more dramatic difference. Here, disbursements, according to this report, were over 76,000. But the notation here, FR, stands for the financial report. So if we were to pull the city's books, the city's computer records, it would show that for the same period of time, only 47,000 was paid out. Why that's a different number, I don't know. And as you look down these columns, here's another example down here. This is the bond and interest sinking fund. It shows that 48,000 and change came in, the 23,600 went out. But in fact, in the city's books and the city's records, the money coming in was only 20,000, and there was no disbursements. There was no money going out at all. Items that have a check next to them are perfectly correct. They're correct to the penny. So it's possible that some of these things are absolutely correct, but there are others that are different, and why they're different, I don't know. Notations along the side relate to transfers, because sometimes the money is transferred from one account to another, and that happens periodically. In fact, that's probably what this number is, 23,600. But nevertheless, it doesn't show up in the city's books. Another one of the problems we found is that the opening balances change during the year. Remember I said that our books close on April 30th, and the new year, the new fiscal year starts on May 1st. So normally you would expect that the balance from April 30th would be carried forward to May 1st. That doesn't happen. I'm using the bond and interest sinking fund here as an example. This is from September of last year. This figure is the opening balance. So this figure that's circled is the figure that was recorded on May 1st. Whether or not this was the figure on April 30th, I don't have right here. I can go back and look, but I don't have that here. So I'm taking this at face value. The notations that I have here, remember we looked at this just a moment ago. The bank balance report said that there was a disbursement of 23,600. You can see the report shows nothing here, no disbursement at all. And the same thing here, the bank balance report shows that there was revenue, money coming in, of over 48,000, and here it shows only 19,000. But what's an issue of concern for me here is that this report, the September report with the opening balance of almost 41,000, is quite a bit different than the report in October. The report for the same account shows the opening fund balance, that would be the balance on May 1st, was all of a sudden 82,000. So between September and October, the opening balance from May 1st changed. Here's another example. Same time period, September. This time we're looking at the water fund. It shows the beginning balance, that would be May 1st, was a positive 156,000 and change. Here we have the same account for the month of October, and this opening balance for May 1st is now negative. It's negative 59,618. There's no explanation for that. Another example, September of last year, Cemetery Endowment Fund, another fund that has no transactions to speak of. It just acquires interest and occasionally a tiny bit from lot sales. It shows that the opening balance on May 1st was 22,000 and change. However, in the following month, in October, that opening balance all of a sudden was 74,000. Another example, same time period, September of last year, sewer fund, opening balance on May 1st, 606,000. In October, that positive 606,000 became a negative 74,000. So we had a swing of almost $700,000 from one month to the next. This is the opening balance. This is not a transaction that occurred. But the net result is that it causes the numbers in the city's records to become unreliable. Here's another one. We talked about the revolving loan fund in the past. We've seen this figure before. Again, September, opening balance May 1st, 5,102,000. October, 121,416. What changed? I don't know. Here's a general fund. General fund, for those of you who are hearing this for the first time, is the account that's like your family's checking account. This is the account that holds money for administrative expenses and streets and police, a number of other working type expenses. At the beginning of May, it had only $3,000 in it. But yet in the following month, that was reported in September, in October, that $3,000 from May 1st changed into $90,000. And needless to say, here the balance was reported as being, the total in the account was reported as being $83,000. And with the change in the opening balance, now all of a sudden there's $173,000 in the account. So the net result is that when these numbers change, for whatever reason, it makes the city look like we've got more money than we really do. There may be an explanation for it, but I haven't yet heard one that makes sense. But what does happen is that the budgeting that goes on in the city is based on these numbers. It's based on these city reports. So if you're trying to decide how much you can spend, what you can afford, and you're looking at numbers that are not accurate, you're going to make decisions that are not going to be accurate either. And you're going to see a little more about this in just a moment. Another one of the issues that is significant for the city is that we have a tremendous amount of uncollected water bills. We'll call them water bills just for short, but they include sewer, garbage, and debt service charges as well. Since 1981, the city's had an ordinance on the book that says if you're late more than 30 days paying your water bill, the city can shut off your water, which is not surprising. A lot of communities have that. The difficulty here in Mount Carroll is that this ordinance has not been enforced. What that has meant is that over time, if the money's not coming in, the money still is needed to be used to pay bills, to pay for the water and sewer service. It's meant that the charges have to go up. So the lack of collection of that money is costing those of us who are paying our water bills on time extra money, and you can see the figures. Every year, the clerk has to produce a report. She wears two hats. She's the collector as well as the clerk. And one of the things she does as the collector is to make a report of all of the money that has been collected in the city. And one of the items in that report is a figure that relates to the amount of money that's been written off, that has not been collected for water and sewer bills. These figures are from the collector's report. They are not my figures. And you can see this year, the number is less, quite a bit less than it has been, but there have been some write-offs. These are the numbers from previous years. And the written off accounts over a period of years at this point total upwards of $30,000. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When these are written off, are they voted on by the entire council, or who has the authority to take those off the book?
Some of them are discussed. Actually, maybe Doris and Bob can give us an answer. Do you vote to write off water bills?
We have voted to take off some of them, but I don't ever remember voting to take off the quantities that's there.
Some of the water bills have been voted to be passed on to a collection agency.
I got a question.
Sure.
Is there any way that accounts for it now can be put back in the books and collected?
Well, the thing that's interesting, Gary, is that there is an entry in the city's books. There's a line item for uncollected, for bad debts. And most of this money has never been recorded as bad debt in the city's books. It's just been taken off the reports. So I think the answer is yes. I mean, I think it would take the official stamp of approval from an auditor to say, yes, you can go back and try to recover this money, but I think that's possible.
Can they tell that all the bill collectors?
They haven't done anything. Yeah.
When I came onto the council in
Not
2011,
but sure help.
the first water bill report that I read, there was $40,900 uncollected. Within 6 months, they had written off $25,247 of that.
During the time that I was on the council, which was from 2007 through 11, at one point, uncollected water bills were in excess of $50,000. Some of that was written off, some of it just came out of the reports. But we're talking significantly.
Isn't that something that the city council do as a council member? Isn't that your responsibility to question?
We have,
And as a result of that, what has taken place by you, you are the ones that tell the clerk what to do. Whoever the clerk is.
she doesn't do it. She doesn't do it. I had a gentleman with over a $2,000 water bill, and each one on the council instructed her to shut it off, and it was not done.
And it was voted on, it's in the minutes of the meeting.
We voted on it, each and every one of us, and she was to shut it off, and it was not shut off.
One of the things that's been a problem over the years is that the way the city government is set up, the clerk is an elected position. And what that means is that the clerk is not accountable to the mayor, the clerk is not accountable to the council, the clerk is accountable to the people of the town. And the only time the people of the town have an opportunity to express an opinion is at election time. So during the time that I was on the council, and Diane, where are you? Diane was very active in trying to monitor, oh, here she is, trying to monitor what was going on with these unpaid water bills. And countless numbers of times we asked, please, to do this. We said, do this. We gave instructions. We pretty much asked in every way possible. But at the end of the day, the collector does the collections, and the collector is only accountable to the public. So that's a matter of election time. Yeah.
I have a question. It seems like a decent amount of money. What percentage what would you expect what kind of revenue do you receive from water bills? So what percentage is this of the amount of money that you collect?
I don't have an annual number, although I can look it up, but on a monthly basis, the amount of water bill revenue is somewhere, and it's not just water, it's water, sewer, debt service, and so on.
This is all included in all
Yes,
three that you
those are inclusive numbers. Those figures are, well, about a third. The amount of money that comes in on a monthly basis is about 70 or 80,000. I don't have an actual number for you, but that's something we can look up.
And then these figures are what you write off for a year?
Those are the figures from the collector's report, and I suspect that there is some overlap. So that's not necessarily written off in its entirety. Some of that is carried forward into the next year.
Because a lot of the stuff is probably old, right?
Oh, yeah, some of it's very old.
It's not like they didn't pay their bill and then, okay, we'll write it off. Some of these are pretty, they carry over for many
Well,
years.
actually, at this point, I think there's been an effort to try and clean these up. So some of that has gone on, but some of the unpaid bills have been outstanding for a very long time.
Some of them have been outstanding for a long time, and also there are people that have had quite large water bills, and they have moved to a different address in Mount Carroll. The water is turned on, and they create another water bill.
So we have serial offenders, people that run up a bill in one location, move to another location, run up another bill, change the name on the account, put it in their husband or their partner's name. So, I mean, people are gaming the system. This is not just a matter of somebody who's got a problem. You know, it's causing them to be behind. There's people who are using the system. Yeah.
Were these figures all turned into the collection agency?
No.
Those?
No, a very small amount was turned
I
in.
think about $3,000 was turned in. But they said that when they turned them in, they expected a zero amount return. And we have gotten nothing. Nothing.
So these numbers, whether or not this is the absolute complete total, the net result is that the amount of money that the city needs to run the water and sewer department, because there's no tax money that's used in running the water and sewer department. That is considered to be a business, that's a utility, and it has to pay for itself. So because the money doesn't come in, these accounts are very often running at a razor thin or in a negative balance. Now, that causes problems because, let's face it, we have to have water and sewer working in the city, and if money is not there, it has to come from someplace else. So what happens is we start to get a shell game where money is moved from one account to another account, and then it's loaned, and maybe sometimes it's returned, but sometimes it's not returned. And this kind of triggers a cascade of other effects that are not necessarily expected, like taking money from accounts that shouldn't be touched. So this is a serious issue. Yeah.
I have a question. Why in Stockton, the city clerk says she has a handful of water bills that don't get paid? What is she doing different than our city clerk?
She's
Why
turning
are we
off the
getting
water
paid?
after 30 days.
Because she says she has a handful.
I know.
We
I thought
have
so too.
thousands.
It's a matter of enforcing the ordinance. I mean, obviously, there has to be some sort of an accommodation for people who legitimately have issues, because this is a small community and people are caring and they want to help where they can. But the problem that we seem to have is that there are some people who are taking advantage of the system, and that needs to stop in my mind.
Well, currently, on the table is to raise the debt service up to $40.
So
If we were able to collect all this money that people are not paying, we wouldn't have to be talking about raising the debt service.
So what Bob is saying goes back to one of my earlier slides, and I showed you that the water charges have gone up over a period of years, the sewer charges have gone up, and the debt service has gone up dramatically. Let's talk about that for a second. The debt service money is basically the repayment, the loan repayment for our water tower and the new well and the infrastructure that was put in a couple of years ago. That bill cost us over $4 million, and none of that was subsidized by the state. That's coming out of our pockets. So that's a bill that has to be paid. The state doesn't take kindly for us to try and wiggle out of that. When that project was first considered, one of the important calculations was how much would each household have to pay on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, to repay whatever it was, $2 million over 20 years. And the math at the time was that it was going to cost each household, I believe the number was $7.50. So water bills went up by $7.50. However, over a period of time, that has proved to be insufficient because the money is not coming in. It's not like all of a sudden the cost went up. Loan is a fixed amount. That's going to be the same amount over 20 years. Some people did leave town, okay, so that's legitimate, but that's a smaller factor than the people who are not paying their bills. And as a consequence, from, I believe, $7.50, the rate went up over $9, then it went to $12, then it went to $17, now it's $22.50. And as Bob is saying, there's some talk that it's going to be raised again. And that's because the money is not being collected. That's not the only reason, but that's the primary reason.
I have a couple questions.
There, right now, $7,000 in 3 years. That's, I could miss the cents.
It's what?
I could miss the cents.
No.
If you didn't pay a telephone bill or electric bill, you shut off.
Somebody's
Somebody's
paying
not
the
doing
difference.
the job.
Somebody's not doing that.
Did I hear you say that you cannot levy any money for your water and sewer funds in Mount Carroll?
No, you didn't hear me say that.
Okay, I thought when you said you couldn't put any extra tax dollars in there.
That's right. It's not, doesn't come from property taxes. These are enterprise funds, and they are paid for by fees, by user fees.
Okay.
Is the city clerk in charge of telling the water sewer department to shut off immediately?
Yes.
It's her job?
Yes. Okay, so I've said some of this already. That the water, this bill that we get once a month pays for the maintenance and wages in both water and sewer department. It pays for the loan payment to the state. And it also pays for the garbage hauling expense to Mooring, who's our garbage hauler. So we're going to talk about that in a second. So we're not bringing in the money that is due, legitimately due to the city. So we're getting shortchanged on the money coming in. Now, we have a problem in that we're paying too much on the other side. I have to give you a little bit of background. The city charges each household $7 a month for garbage pickup. If you live in an apartment, if you're a business, you have to arrange that yourself, and you'll have a dumpster so you don't get this charge. So the number of people in the city who have water bills is not necessarily the same. In fact, it's not the same number of people who have garbage charges. Those two are different figures. How many households there are in the city is a very important number to identify. Because, as I said, each household that has garbage collection pays $7 a month. However, it costs the city much more than $7 a month to have Mooring come and take the trash away. And in fact, at the end of the contract in 2012, the city was paying $11.18 per household per month to Mooring to take the trash away. So that $4.18 shortfall was paid for by the city. Some of that was subsidized by garbage sticker sales. You know, we have to put a sticker on our bags. So people who don't do that are shortchanging us as well. But the real issue is that the difference between those sticker sales and the total that goes to Mooring is paid by property taxes. So we all contribute to that. As a consequence, it's really important to know how many people are being serviced by Mooring so that we can pay an accurate amount. And this is where it starts to get a little slippery. We've been trying to identify the exact amount of people who have garbage pickup service. We requested a report of all of the users, all the garbage service users, and the report that we got back from City Hall as of December 12th showed that, I'm sorry, it's very hard to read, there were 904 households. Well, unless there's been a building spurt someplace that I'm not aware of, that seems like an awfully high number. And when we went through the reports, we found that there were people who moved away, duplicate entries, just a lot of extra numbers there that were not really active. So another way we tried to find out, what's a reasonable number of housing units in the city? And this is from the federal census. And according to the federal government, there's 719, this is 2010. That number's gonna change a little bit, people come, people go. But that's significantly less than 904. We also looked at some of the reports. We've gotten reports going back lots of years. And as of last March, this report showed that the user number was actually very low. It's 579, and of that 579 accounts, those people with dumpsters, those businesses that have their own pickup, that accounts for 107 users. So the net here was 472. I mean, that's too low. We know that there's more than 472 households in the city. Why is this important? Well, this number is important because we're supposed to be paying more for the actual number of households. And here is the paragraph of the contract with mooring from 2007 through 12, the one that just ended. It shows that the initial cost to the city was $9.65 per household per month. And for the purposes of the calculation of the contract, that a theoretical number of 760 households was going to be used. But what's important in this paragraph is that it says that the clerk is supposed to give an accurate monthly count to mooring by the 10th of the month for billing purposes. That's 760. Keep that in your mind for a moment. Here's the new contract. This was negotiated and agreed by the council and began in January of this year. Here you can see that this hypothetical number is 730, so it's 30 households less than before. It shows that the initial rate is going to be $10.60. But once again, the clerk is supposed to be calling, giving an accurate count by the 10th of the month. Now, we can do a little bit of garbage math here. This is the report, the city's books, the computer printout, that shows this is garbage. Oh, I'm sorry, I circled the wrong thing. Here's the garbage charges. It's $4,864. And we know that households are charged $7. So that means that 695 households actually pay the garbage that month. This is for December. Here we have the figure that was paid to mooring. The figure that was paid to mooring was $8,496.80. And we know that the rate was $11.18. And that shows that there were 760 users. And that's the number, remember, that was the hypothetical in the contract when it was signed in 2007. We have this report going back many years. And when we do this math, it all comes out to 760 users. So what has happened here is the clerk has not been abiding by the terms of the contract. The contract says call with an accurate number by the 10th of the month. But for some reason, that's not happening. And as a consequence, instead of telling the garbage hauler, instead of telling mooring that we had 695 people last month, we're paying as if we were 760. Now, in this particular example, that overpayment works out to be $726 for the month of December. And if you annualize that, if you multiply that by 12, that means that in the course of 2012, we overpaid by almost $9,000. When we talked to the city council about this, when we brought this to the attention of the council, the clerk made a comment that mooring would not stand for it, wouldn't put up for it, wouldn't handle it. I don't remember exactly what she said, but what was important was that she said she's been doing this for 10 years. So you can see that with an excess payment of almost $9,000 in this past year, over a period of 10 years, those numbers are probably a bit smaller. That adds up to some significant money.
very similar to that. We pay a certain amount for our household for, let's just say 1,000, I think it might be, let's just say 1,000 households.
Okay.
And let's say it's $7, so you,
Right.
regardless, that is what is going to be paid to mooring every month. Yes, we have to disclose to them how many we bill, and at the end of the year, hopefully, the city of Savannah has collected enough funds, but if there was an overpayment, mooring will reimburse the city and vice versa. If we underpaid, then we have to come up with a difference. So,
Is that in your contract?
yeah, that's in our
Okay,
contract.
but that's not in this
But I'm
contract.
saying the contract here is stating you have to pay them 700 on 760 homes regardless how many is paid out.
No.
No, that's
No,
not
by
what
the
it
end of the month, you.
That was the number that was used so that they could calculate their rate for the purposes of the
Sure,
RFF, or RFP. But the actual monthly calculation is supposed to be based on actual households.
So per your contract, you're supposed to be getting reimbursed either way if you
No,
were under
We're
monthly?
supposed to be giving an accurate figure. So there's the reimbursement. I think that's what you're getting at, is that if the figures are not accurate, then there's a,
Right.
yeah.
We don't do it monthly because
Yeah.
it wouldn't make sense to do that. I mean, you would always be chasing the bills, you know, if you did it monthly.
Well, you'd have to lag them so that you'd be using the number from the previous month. You wouldn't be able to have the current month to
Correct.
to
Correct.
pay for the current month. You'd be a month behind. But yeah, that's the way this contract is
Was
written.
that the full contract, or is that just a part of the contract that you wanted to pull out?
That's just a piece of the contract. There's why there's multiple pages, yeah.
Why would it change monthly? I'm not
Negotiate
mistaken.
the contract?
People move in and out around.
Well, people,
That many per month, people move in and out?
there never was 760
That's why-
households. That was a number that was sort of pulled out of the air as a starting number. And as time has gone by, people move in, people move out. Yes, that number does fluctuate, but that's why it's important to take the number from the previous month to use for the billing for
And who
this.
does the counting? I mean, does Mooring count number of houses
No.
they pick up every
We do.
week?
It goes by the billing.
It goes by the billing, the number of people. Because when you come, you know, and you say, I'm going to turn my water on, please turn my water on, then you go into the system, right? And you're in the system until you say, turn
But
my
you know
water
how
on.
many of dumpsters do not have the garbage pickup then? That's
Yeah, we
100%
don't,
you take off.
we don't have, the garbage dumpster issue is purely between the client and mooring. The city doesn't get involved in that at all.
So what you're saying is, per the contract, mooring will take the word of the billing and change it.
They don't change it, we tell, we
Well, I
pay
mean,
them.
So I guess what's the point of a contract for them to say the average is going to be 760, but you're changing that, it could be 590 or...
That was the figure that was used as a hypothetical to start the
As a
contract
base figure.
So does mooring bill the city quarterly or monthly?
monthly.
And if she lets them know a different number by the 10th, it can be changed. It is.
That's a very, very different contract than Savannah has.
I got a question. Doris probably have to ask this. It's not legal to put your spur barrel in town, is it?
Is it what?
You just burn your barrel, burn your trash in. It's not legal to use that in town, is it?
No.
I didn't think so. My neighbor lady was asking me where I could find a burner barrel. I didn't think it was legal, so.
No. We have recyclable bins and paper, you can tie the paper up and put it in the recyclable bin, but you're not supposed to burn it.
Okay, so again, remember we started talking about, this was the figure that was used for the initial contract in 2007. And this was the figure that was continued to be used through the lifespan of that contract. In January of this year, under the new contract, the hypothetical number was 730. And based on the new contract, actually there was an excess amount of money in this payment. I'm not sure exactly why that was. It works out to be 741 users. But February's figure at 1060 works out to be 730. That's the figure that's in the contract. But this is where it's interesting because this is an issue that has been discussed in the city council that Bob and Doris have brought to light. The amount that was paid to mooring in the month of March was $6,656. based on the figures from the actual receipts, the money going out, it worked out to be 628 users. So that's a pretty significant difference, and what it implies is that 760 users 2 months earlier was way higher than it should have been. The issue for us is that this is a number that's been the figure used going back for a long number of years. Okay, so why is all of this relevant? Yeah.
I have a new contract here. Maybe we
Oh,
can
okay.
Take a look at it.
All right, yeah. So Tony that's there, if you want to take a look at it. Okay, this is the treasurer's report. It's a document that's printed in paper. And this is relevant because it shows that, this is for 2011, April of 2011, we paid over $1.6 million in bills, we paid over $500,000 in wages. Our total expenses were over $2 million. Our income was only $1.7 million, which meant that we spent more than $400,000, money that we did not have coming in. We were able to do that because the city has, or had, savings sitting in that account, in those accounts. Here's the same report for this past year. The numbers are not very different. Total vendors, about $1.5 million. Wages, a little over $500,000. Total expenses, a little over $2 million. Income, about $1.6 million. And again, we were short. We spent more than we had, over $400,000. Now, in 2008, when I was on the council, the money in the city's accounts was almost $900,000. At this point, our balance is down. It's a little over $300,000 at the moment. So this shortfall has been manageable because the city had money on deposit. It had extra money. But you can see, if we persist in spending this kind of money, we are going to be in a position where we're out. We can't spend anymore. So getting our finances, getting our books in order, making those figures accurate so that we can do a budget that's reliable, collecting the money that is due to the city, not overpaying, those are important things to make all of these numbers work. Okay, now I'm going to tell you a little bit about a particular instance. Actually, Darcy's going to tell us about this. Darcy, you want to talk about this with the whole crossing fund?
Sure, the school crossing fund. We used to have people that we would hire for the school crossing with the old school when we consolidated and the kids were taken out of there. That account was closed. In 2007, we transferred money, but then the clerk said to keep it open to 2008 because we might be getting some tax money in after that. And so in 2008, the account was closed out completely. But, okay. And then you can see, this is from the audit book in 2008. The money was there, then it was taken out, and where the circle is, there's a line there. This is the audit book, a copy of the audit book. It zeroed it out. There was no money, closed out. Okay, then in 2012, all of a sudden, it showed a minus 8,000 for the school crossing fund. And that was in July, August, September, a minus $8,000. Okay.
The adjustment.
Okay, we asked the clerk why there was a balance there. There had been some money, and then it went to a positive 8,000. But we asked why there was money there, and she said the auditors had made an adjustment. But in fact, the auditors sent a note saying they did not have to adjust anything because the auditors had closed the account in 2008. And there you can see that there's a positive 8,000 for October, November, and December of 12. And so I asked again where the money came from, and she said, I don't know, it just appeared. But there's the bank balance.
Down here at the bottom, this is, remember, the summary of the various bank accounts.
The bank balance shows that there is a zero amount, but up above, in the revenues and disbursements, for December, it says 8,000. The bank balance has zero. Very confusing.
Sorry, I jumped ahead of you. No, we don't have an answer for that one. Okay. You want to talk about revolving loan?
Revolving loan program, loans are gifts. In 2006, the Campbell Center received a $50,000 revolving loan. In 2008, it was declared in default because he had never made a payment. The payment that was made by the city utilizing TIF money has brought the account down to $43,000 default.
Do you want to talk about the source of the
source of the money? The money originally comes from the federal government, gives a grant to the state. The state loans it out to cities like Mount Carroll to invest in economic development. And this part of the economic development is a loan to the Campbell Center. One of the requirements, of course, was that they had to repay it. Another requirement was they had to create a certain number of jobs. But to date, they have not made a payment. It is in default. The clerk has written that the city does not want to write this off. The problem with that is they can't write it off because eventually the federal government wants that money back from the state and the state wants it back from the city. Somewhere down the line, the city's going to have to pay that $43,000. Then you would think that in a normal business operation where you got a loan, you put up some security, that the city could seize that security, sell it, and pay off the loan. Unfortunately, the city does not have a mortgage, does not have a promissory note, or any guarantee whatsoever for this $50,000 that they loaned the Campbell Center. As I said, the Campbell Center loan had a payment of $7,000 made on it from TIF money. Now, the tax increment financing district encompasses most of Mount Carroll, and in order for us to take that $7,000 to give it onto their loan, that money came from other properties in the TIF district that paid their increment. Now, one of the clauses in the revolving loan agreements, 200-page document, says that only the TIF money that originates from the subject property can be used to pay the TIF loan. So you can't use everybody else's TIF money to pay off some other revolving loan, which they have done not only on the Campbell Center loan, but on the CDC loan.
Okay.
Some issues that we think that the mayor's been slow to act on are the flushing of the water hydrants. As you can see from the note up there, the flushing does several things: cleans water lines, circulates chemicals, and makes sure that the hydrants are working. A citizen who's with us here tonight called all the surrounding cities to see how often they flush their hydrants. Most of them flush at least once, and many of them 2 times or more. Flushing water in Mount Carroll has been almost non-existent. Now, in 2011, they did flush most of them, and the water superintendent said that he was going to flush in 2012, but never did. In that previous to 2011, there were 3 fires, and the first hydrants that the fire department were connected to were not operational, and those 3 hydrants have still not been fixed. Another issue that the mayor has sat on for a long time is the swimming pool. In 2000, I believe it was 2008, the city was required to do some renovations to the swimming pool drains. Since 2008, they received 6 letters reminding them that they had not yet fixed the drains. And on October 1st of 2011, the state took the city to court, sued the city for that repair, and closed the pool. Within 5 days, that pool repair was made. Now, somewhere along the line, somebody should have encouraged that repair to be made and not take 4 years. Today, we're faced with a situation where the state has required the city to put in an ADA lift, and it was supposed to have been put in last year. It's still not in today. The Galena Street Bridge is another issue that has been pushed behind. The bridge is in very poor condition. The engineers that inspected told us that because of lack of maintenance that this has gotten into this condition. The city has not performed the maintenance on it over the years, and that's why it's deteriorated. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the bridge is a historic structure, and we will always have to maintain it. Whether it's sitting right there or if it's replaced and set to the side, we still have to keep it painted, scrape the rust. There won't be any wear on the deck, but speaking of the wear on the deck, there used to be metal plates on the deck. As they wore out, the city decided to take them off. The engineer said that they needed to be replaced to extend the life of the planks, and for some reason they've never been put on. This bridge is supposed to be replaced in 2014. A financing arrangement between the state, the county, and the city existed then. Of course, the state's in pretty serious condition now, so they were going to put up 80%, county 10%, city 10%. All the money that we have put into the bridge fund has been spent for other things. There's no money in the bridge fund.
Doris, you want to talk about the endowment?
Cemetery endowment. When the cemetery came into the city, there were special terms that are by and by. And it said all monies, bequests, endowments, not specifically endowed, in amounts over $50 shall be kept separate and apart from all other funds and invested as provided in Section 1 of this article. Interest to be put in the bank and shall not be used for any purpose whatever, but shall be kept until all other funds are exhausted, that only the interest of said fund may be used for the care and upkeep of West Oak Hill Cemetery. Those are the bylaws that the city agreed to.
Okay, and
In the committee meeting, April 23rd of 2012, Alderman Sisler handed this to the mayor and said, "You need to read this." The mayor took the copy of the bylaws and he said, "These mean nothing." He said, "They're nothing but garbage and they belong in the garbage," and he threw them on the floor. When this came in to the city, at the end of 1986, there was $92,543.81. And 1986 also, it says that there was a transfer from the cemetery to the operating fund of $7,993.11.
we'll talk about the state law.
Okay, the state law is also saying that any gift, legacy, or money, property, either real, personal, or mixed, which may be donated to the Board of Managers for the use and maintenance of lot or cemetery. You can apply the income, therefore, to the care of the cemetery lot or the maintenance of the cemetery. But anything that is given has got to stay in the trust. They receive in trust, and that's what this is considered. It's and that's also in the audit. It's a fiduciary fund. It's a private purpose trust fund. And the state also says you cannot use that.
The problem here is that it seems to be like a fund that the city council likes to go to when all other funds are completed. Yet, because it's a fiduciary fund, we really aren't supposed to take money out of it. We've worked with several other council members to get money put back into that fund, but we're never going to recover all the money that was in it.
Okay.
Is there a penalty to take money out of there, like imprisonment? Is it against the law under the bylaw?
Well, we're going to find out.
We'll find out, Cheryl, but let me say, I worked in banking for a long number of years, and I worked with other people's money. I had fiduciary funds that I worked in. If I had taken money out, I would be in prison. I don't know if that same degree of penalty is true for the city, but for an individual, if you take fiduciary money, you're in trouble.
Okay, on April 30th
Oh,
of
that
12.
cemetery, we bought our lots, got lied to. We did a favor, sold the lots to us. She said that little low spot in there, got filled up with dirt. I haven't seen a shovel full of dirt in there yet.
Okay, the endowment fund for April 30th
So
of
that
12
fell apart in about
shows that there's
Little spot lots.
$1,581.29.
Okay, yeah, so ending balance, okay.
Okay.
This is the same date.
Yes, on the same date, it says it is $55,440.57. You have that for May, Nina? You have,
That's at the end of April.
okay, and then for May,
And then for May, the beginning balance,
yes, the beginning balance in May, you had seen that the ending balance was 1,500. The beginning balance in May is 22,658. Again in June. But in October, all of a sudden, there's 74,000. Now, we're talking about cash in the bank, cemetery. 74,000. We went from 22 to 74. And then again,
from 1,500.
from 1,500. And then again, and the audit says that there was 56,000. Also in 2004, Ethel Wayman passed away and left a bequest to the city of $64,518.05 that was put into the operating maintenance account and was spent, gone.
So instead of going into the endowment fund, it went into the
It went
operating
into
fund.
the operating and maintenance account. Then just this last December, we got a check from the Thomas Campbell estate. And that also, now remember, it said anything over $50. But this also, the check was for $2,045.64. It went into the operation and maintenance fund, not into the endowment fund. And here's a copy of the check.
Okay. Okay, so we've talked about issues. Now, a lot of people believe that because there's an audit, that somebody's looking out for the discrepancies in finances. And what we've actually found, that's not the case. And the reports that the auditors say everything is okay, that's not the case either. So Bob's going to tell you a little bit about some of the deficiencies in the audit. And I apologize in advance, the print is very small, I know that. I can show it to you, it's hanging on the wall over there if you want to read it. You can't read it either? Read it, sorry.
Right, some members of the council say that, well, the auditor says that everything is okay. Well, the auditors have said other things. Things that, such as the clerk should not collect cash and also record it. That the clerk and the treasurer should not be authorized to sign checks, especially to themselves, and neither the mayor nor any council member should be signing checks made payable to themselves. With 6 co-signers available, that should never happen. The auditor also pointed out that the payroll is currently managed by just one person, and this system is contrary to building strong internal controls, and suggests that surprise reviews of the payroll be made. This is exactly what has happened, but it wasn't well received. The surprise reviewers were persecuted. Next. Help me out there, of course I can't read that.
Oh. It's a problem preparing financial statements.
Oh, right. The city lacks the personnel. City personnel are not adequately prepared to make these financial statements. You know, that can be corrected by training. But the fact remains is that the auditor says that they were not qualified to make these financial statements. And then when they say that the auditor said everything is fine, we point out to a paragraph in the audit that says that the auditors do not receive enough information to be able to express an opinion or provide any assurance that everything is okay. The auditors also pointed out that transfers of money were made without council approval. The mayor says that he can do that, but the auditors say that the council has to approve these transfers before they can be made. And also suggests that we should have an outside treasurer to improve internal controls. There's a number of reports that have been filed by the clerk for a number of years. The TIF, the Tax Increment Financing Report, the Joint Review Board, the Revolving Loan Fund, Motor Fuel Tax, and the Annual Financial Report all were several years behind. Now, an effort has been made to get those up to date, but the fact remains is that it took the auditor to point out these shortcomings.
I think that's the end. Here we go. Okay. So, to wrap up our presentation for this evening, we've given you examples of some of the problems that are in our financial records. And we've showed you that the result of these problems mean that the city is spending more than we have. That's not a situation that we can do forever. In fact, I mean, this is probably the last year that there could be an overspending situation like that, and even probably not to the extent that it's happened in the past. So it's really critical that those reports be made accurate so that, I mean, it's just like your checking account, right? If you have got bad numbers in your checking account and you write checks and you go overdrawn, it costs you money. If the city gets into that position, it's going to cost us money.
It already has.
It already has. It already has. But cities don't go bankrupt. People can go bankrupt, but cities can't go bankrupt, except if the state says it's okay. The state has to give approval for something like that to happen, and it doesn't happen very often, very rarely actually. So what happens instead is that the fees are raised and we pay them. Or the property taxes go up and we pay them. So it's in our best interest not just to solve some of these problems and make the reports accurate. It's going to cost us money if we don't do that. That's one thing that's really important. The other thing is some of these other issues are safety issues. Think about the problem that we have had with water quality. We have people sitting in this room who still have problems with the water quality. That's ridiculous. You should be able to drink the water when you turn on the tap. You shouldn't have to let it run for half an hour before you get clear water. That needs to be fixed. And one of the reasons, or one of the ways to do that, is to flush the hydrants. And that's periodic maintenance that should be scheduled. And that's easy to do. All we have to do is schedule it and then get the guys to do what they're supposed to do. The maintenance of bridge. All of these things are management types of issues. They can be fixed. But it takes someone who's willing to stand up and, use a little tough love to make it happen. So the last thing I guess that I want to say is that these are problems that the people who are right in the center of them have not shown any interest in fixing. We've asked. We've asked in over a period of years. And that doesn't seem to be bringing any kind of corrective action. So one of the things that has happened is that we've talked to the Attorney General's office about this, particularly the accounting stuff. And they said to us If you know there's a problem and you don't fix it, or you don't work to fix it, we're just as guilty. And that's part of the reason that we have been working on this for now more than 2 years, over a longer period of time. What's important for you to know is that the state police actually were here a year ago and started to investigate some of the records in City Hall. And that investigation is open, has not been closed. Recently, the Attorney General's office contacted us again and said that more information has come to light. They think the state police need to come back again. That hasn't happened yet. And we don't really know when that's going to be or what exactly they're going to be looking for. But the bottom line is, the city has to clean up its act. And unless people in the community want that to happen, it's not going to happen. So you have an opportunity, it's election time. You have an opportunity to make a choice. Hopefully having some additional information will help you make up your mind what's the right way to go. And it's your choice when the time comes to cast a vote. How many questions?
I'm going to back you up here a ways. Who's responsible for the bills in the trailer court? How's that run? Do you know, is the individual or the people or person that owns them is responsible?
It depends what you're talking about. The water and sewer,
The
water and sewer is
garbage.
for the individual. The garbage is, there's a dumpster there.
Oh, okay.
So they don't pay for garbage, but they do pay for water and sewer. And I can tell you that historically, that has been one of the places where there have been a lot of problems.
I can believe that.
That, the overdue water bills in the trailer court amounted to $6,800. A lien was placed on the trailer court property, and the $6,800 written off of the bill, so it no longer shows up in the...
So is the lien still on the property?
The lien is still on the property.
But, you know, in a way, the property owner is not the individual who's responsible for the use of that water. It was the individuals. But unfortunately, the way the council has decided to handle it is to make the unpaid bills the responsibility of the owner of the land, when it's actually the people who were there who used the water. So there's some inequity, at least it seems to me. I think that's something that needs to be looked at a little bit more, but that's the way it is at the moment.
And some of those bills were several $100s.
Sounds to me like we need a city clerk and a mayor that does the job. Instead of cutting corners and not doing the job.
You're right. Any other questions? Yeah, Gary.
This water and sewer deal, I was on the city board in Chadwick. And we had this same thing. We were arguing on the board about shutting people's water off. The lawyer told us that you had to send them 5 notices. And after they got that 5th notice, if they did not pay their water bill, you could shut their water off. And we argued about they didn't want to shut the water off. Well, I'm not tooting my horn, but I went and got the wrench and I shut the water off. You got to be prepared because they're going to fight. They come to your door, beating on your door and shaking their fist at you. But if they know that you're not going to put up with it and you will shut the water off, you'd be surprised. We never had a delinquent water bill for I don't know how long because the people knew that you were going to shut the water off. And it does, they do pay attention. They get the money. They'll use you. Just like you were telling about those people kept moving around. They will use you if you let them. But if you show you mean business, it's surprising how that works.
It's good to hear. I went and spoke at some length with the clerk and the treasurer and the water person in Stockton. And what I learned there is that they don't have any delinquent water bills. They've only written off 1 water bill in 17 years. And that's because after 30 days, they shut off the water. There's a process there's a process after the bill is late, 30 days, then there's a notice that goes out, and they've got 5 days to respond to it. And if they don't respond after 5 days, this is where your multiple, notices come in. After your 5-day period, then they send out a police officer with the shut-off notice, and then they have another 24 hours. So, I mean, there's plenty of opportunity for somebody who's really, struggling to get it together. And if after that 24-hour period, then the water guy goes out and turns off the water.
They know you're not gonna mess around. It's surprising how that works.
It's tough love. I mean, everyone has got a tender spot and doesn't want to make life hard for people, but we have to have the funds so that the city can run.
But if this procedure was followed and everybody ended up paying their water bill when it got shut off, they wouldn't be talking about a $40 debt service, and we wouldn't be paying $22.
That's exactly correct.
Because when we moved to town 27 years ago, the average water bill was $19.38. Now the average water bill is $48.60.
That's the minimum. That's not
That's
average.
just, well,
That's
that's
the
just
minimum.
the minimum
That's
that
the
you
minimum.
pay, and the 1938 was the minimum, and of course, according to your usage. So,
That's right,
I
I'll
also
come
have to
back
figure
later
out,
and walk this
27 years
people
ago,
out.
what was the price of a gallon of gas?
Well, I mean, there's some of it.
I'm honestly gonna say that. I mean, that's a poor
But by
way to
them
look at it. I
not,
agree, but come on.
but by them not collecting the water bills and writing all them off, the people that pay their water bills every month are being penalized, and the taxes and everything, and it's not fair. And if you check with a lot of other towns around here, they have cheaper water rates, you don't get metered, and if you check with Pearl City, their water bill's way cheaper, and they can use as much as they want.
Cheryl, any situation is more complicated than just one factor. This is what Michelle is referring to. Yes, over time, inflation causes the price of a lot of things to go up, but that's not the only factor. There are other factors that come into it, and we've had people coming and going, so that the number of households in the community are going to fluctuate. But at the end of the day, there's ways to deal with these things, and the important thing is to be certain that the people who are actually using the service are paying for the service. It's just like if you were a restaurant owner and you had people come in and eat dinner, you wouldn't let half of them walk out without paying for their meal. And that's what's happening right now. We have to be sure that if you use the service, you pay your fair share.
Well, if you don't, you cost the people that do pay.
It's gonna cost us more if it goes up $22 to $40 for the people that aren't paying their water bills. And a lot of these people that aren't paying them are still in Mount Carroll, living at different addresses under somebody else's name.
But you guys are getting worked up on $18,000 you're talking about in that. So you divide that out by your 700 households that you're using as a rough estimate. That's about $25 a house, Terry. We're talking $2 a month tops. I mean, I don't see where you're saying that's that big a savings. Or you're worrying about, you said you take in, what'd you say, 70 to 80,000 a year or a month. So that's roughly $1 million, 960 on this high side. You're talking about 1.8% of your water bills are default. That's a low rate. And you guys are spending countless hours and you keep beating the bush on it. And $18,000 when you're talking about multi-millions that your budget is and you're $400,000 short.
And 18,000 would know, and why?
But you guys are talking as
Why should I pay my water bill if you're not gonna pay yours?
But you haven't worked up yet when you're talking.
No.
You want them to select, you guys contradict yourself nonstop. You had the whole past 6 months. You made this town a joke.
It's gonna go up another $18 on that debt service.
What's that?
I'm paying, I don't think it's nice, I don't think you're cutting
That's another
$18
$18 on our water bill.
Somebody else.
So
Well,
by
when you got
collecting
$18
$18,
going up on your water
$18
bill
a
and your
month.
light bill and your gas bill, that's a big difference. This is an older town. People are on fixed incomes.
$2 a month is all.
No, it's gonna go up $18 a
How much
month.
are you saying that you guys were
Time
off
out,
last year?
time out. What's your name?
It's your bill. My name's Scott. That's your bill. I'm just.
Okay,
You're
so,
talking about 18,000 in default, correct? That's how much you were off the past
do you
year?
know, right now, I mean, if you would like to talk about the way we've presented this, I would be happy, but I don't want to argue with you about what we could do, because it's not hypothetical. What we're talking about here is fact. This is the way it is at the moment. That's the way it is at the moment. And what we could do in the future, yeah, there's possibilities, I'm sure. But that's not what we're here to talk
You just
about.
throw out accusations, but you don't have any solutions.
It's not an accusation, it's a fact.
It's a fact when your water bills come every month, and
I'm
they're
not
$60 and $70, and you've got a guy from Chabot here and a guy from Leonard. My daughter lives in Leonard. She don't pay that in 2 months, when I'm paying in a month.
So
And
by
she's got 4 kids in her household. We've got 2.
So by changing the clerk, that's going to change your billing. By changing the mayor, that's going to change your billing. That's going to change how much you owe, how much you spend.
You need to get the money collected in.
Doing the job.
That's the city clerk's job.
Okay?
Now, if you're writing off 25,000 tonight on the water bills,
18 it was past year,
18,000?
That's what was uncollected according to.
Oh, just last year, but it was 25,000 previous 3 years before that, right? Okay, you divide that 25,000 by 700, what do you come up?
But we don't have 700 in some households. We saw the figure for
it's only
this month was
600, right.
630.
But just the $8,000 payment on the dumpster bill, that's $10 a household for the year. And then you multiply, you take the other 25,000, now you're up to $40 a year. That's substantial. And that's just on sewer and water.
When these papers came from the city hall, they were, what do you call it?
Treasurer's report or the collector's
Yes,
report.
I mean, they're not reports that are made up, they're legitimate papers.
And why waste taxpayers' money if it doesn't need to be wasted? It could be spent on other things.
So how much have we spent on audits in this past year and how much?
Well, actually, that's an interesting thing too, because the city spends about $20,000 for its audit, and it has as long as I've been watching the figures. The thing that's real interesting is that all the communities in this area use the same auditor. We use Whipley, okay? Lanark uses them, Savannah uses them, Stockton uses them. We paid, what did I say, $19,000. Lanark paid $9,000 and some dollars for their audit. Savannah just agreed to pay $9,600, and Stockton uses Whipley. They pay $8,300. So why is it that Mount Carroll's audit costs an extra 10 grand? I don't know.
Such a mess.
Because the books are a mess, I don't know. But I mean, the bottom line here is that this is money that belongs to the community. It's money that's been taken in from all of us in the room. And hey, I'd love to see our streets paved properly. I'd like to see a repair process that does things on a systematic way so that we can get our streets up to snuff. We need to do work on our sewer system. All of those things take money. And if we're kind of letting it flow through our fingers, it's no wonder we don't have money to do what we need.
And then we wouldn't be $428,000 overspending for the year.
So if you would like to stay and talk, that's great. I'm happy to have you do that. You can take a look at some of the slides. They're exactly the slides that I put up here, so there's things you want to take a look at, please do. Okay.
I have one question.
Sure.
If the clerk is, or if y'all voted, why hasn't water been shut off? Why hasn't it been enforced, and who needs to enforce it, the police?
Well, I don't have an absolute answer for you because it's the clerk that oversees that process. And for whatever reason, that is not happening. It has not happened, and the requests have been made going back years and years, and it just never happens.
Boy, because when we lived in DeKalb, you didn't pay your water bill and your water was shut off. They didn't care.
And then the code department came in and kicked you out of your house because you didn't have water.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
If you don't have water, you can't live in the house. Unsanitary.
So one person my street shut right off right in front of my house. A couple of years ago, they caught the snowplow, took the top cap off of it. I caught off them, and bit back up, put a new top on it. He told me you gotta come up and take the back top off, cut a piece of the pipe so you get the cap down farther.
So you have a new cap on yours?
They had to come around, done again.
Good.
I like to know what that guy is supposed to do.
How many years ago did the council bring it up about the delinquent water bills and the collection of such?
Started in 2006.
And how was it received?
How was it received? Well, not a lot changed. So the council requests to enforce the ordinance, to collect the water, didn't actually cause any change.
So this isn't a new occurrence, this is something that's gone on when you were on the board of council and the current people that are running around the council.
Exactly.
This is not a new issue.
It's not a new issue. It's been going on for quite a long number of years.
So it's not an issue, or you didn't bring it up when you were around the council.
Absolutely.
You pushed it this level.
No.
Because now it's a different, you have different items. Is that what that's about?
No.
Just out of curiosity.
No. Diane? Diane?
Did she
On the council? Yes.
Oh, she's on the water.
She was on council. When did the issue about collecting the water bills begin?
It was Bill Scarborough that asked the question, how many delinquent water bills we had at one time. And Julie's answer was, to us, a few. And that would have been August of the year that it started. We have a lot of-
Okay, so, yeah, this has been going